What do we know about the Vatican and the Mafia? You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. First, a quick recap of what we covered in our earlier episodes. Second, some updates about Vatican and Mafia activities. Alleged activities. But first thing, recap. Matt and I covered the Mafia in this week's series. We're familiar with stuff like The Sopranos, Godfather, Dick Tracy even, but the actual organizations are secretive. So secretive, in fact, that some of them are misinformed about their own origins. Now, when we covered this, we found that the Mafia has its fingers in a lot of pies, historically speaking. The Mafia in the United States and in Italy has worked with US government officials, has worked with the Italian government, has worked with and against banking facilities and governments. It's a tremendously influential and important organization to Italy's history, or collection of organizations. 2, some updates on the Vatican Bank, or the Institute for Religious Works, and groups that would be called Mafia families. Historically, this has been a strange relationship, and it hasn't always been a relationship that's friendly. Different Mafia families have had what appears to be a contentious relationship with the Vatican at times. This continues today. As recently as 2012, there was another brewing scandal with the Vatican Bank and a Mafia family. A priest in Sicily, Nini Trepideci. This priest, who is currently suspended from the priesthood, has the spotlight on him because Italian authorities have requested access to his bank account records because they suspect that there's money laundering happening on behalf of some mafiosos. Now, at this point, this hasn't been proven. And as far as we know, at this point, the authorities are strongly suspicious. The Vatican Bank is working with these authorities to see if they can shed some light upon this opaque situation. But the important thing for us to remember from this story is that these notoriously non-transparent connections, financial connections between Mafia families and the Vatican Bank are not just things that happened 40 years ago. They may, in fact, be things that are happening today. And that is a perfect example of stuff that the banks and the Mafia might not want you to know. But to be fair, there is one thing that we should add here, and it's something that could be a light at the end of the tunnel. In 2013, very recently, in May in fact, the Vatican Bank announced that it's taking some actions to add to its transparency. It's going to be publishing an annual report. It's going to have a watchdog organization, which was actually started in 2010, investigating different claims of financial shenanigans, which is probably not what they call it. This means that in the future, we may expect to see much more transparency on behalf of the Vatican Bank, which will ultimately lead Italian authorities, in theory, to much easier paths of prosecution for mafioso. So that's all good news, again, in theory. Thanks so much for watching. Now, we still have a classic episode coming out on Saturday. Check it out if you haven't seen it. You can find us on Facebook. We're Conspiracy Stuff. You can drop us a line on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. You can also send us an email directly. We are conspiracy@discovery.com. And stay tuned for next week. We're going to do something completely different. We're going to talk about vibrations, frequencies, and how they may or may not affect you. 2 words, just for a little teaser: brown note.